I want to say I don't know how much. I'm not going to say too much about this, but I have a group that I'm in with SNEAKO, and I talked to him a little bit today. Um, there was other people there. I wasn't just hanging out with SNEAKO, but I was. People were asking him about what's going on, and he needs some encouragement. I don't. I wish I could get him to get in a. Wish I could even just get DMs with him. I sent him a friend request on Discord, but I don't think he. I think he's probably got hundreds of thousands. I don't know, but we're not like working together, so he hasn't replied back. But I'd like to send him a note. I wouldn't want to condescend to him. That's what I want to try to like say this thing that I have to say to him without sounding condescending, because it's really not. Like I have like massive respect for him, and what he's been doing, and so quickly, like it's phenomenal. He's at the level he's at, and he worked every inch of it out himself, and so he's. What am I saying? With all of that said, it seems for me, it seems that he's so new to this world that he's like broken his way into by ascending so quickly through the red pill stuff and into like the real like there's more than one red pill. There's like the red pill for the women community, but then there's the other red pill on like the state of the world. And the woman question and the Jewish question kind of they do overlap. Not for everybody, but if you have an open mind like he does, which is what I respect so much, you can find yourself in the place where he is. It's come on quick. The reason I mention that is because he's being thrust now into like supersonic speed, right to the front of the world stage with Nick and Ye. And he's not on every news network yet. They're not saying his name. They're saying Nick and Ye, but he's right there with them, and that's a lot of pressure. And it's right at the same time that he caught massive success, and then he got deplatformed, which is a huge setback, and then he started building up again with Rumble. He's got the bag secured, he's got some money, but now he has something to lose too. It's one thing when you're coming up and you have nothing to lose, and your bank account's in the 5 figures, but it's different when it's in the 7 figures. Actually, when he started, I bet it was in the 4 figures. So anyway, when you got a few $1,000 versus when you have a few 100,000, or when you have 1,000,000, now you have a lot to lose. And you're a young man and you're looking down the road of like, what am I doing with my life? And now you're in this spot where Nick has been massively persecuted and debanked. Ye is bringing even more heat on him and Nick than ever before. And you're right there with those two guys. Imagine being in that position. Imagine the pressure of being in that position. And then you're now in real life, your IRL, you're there at Yeezy headquarters with Nick and Ye. And Ye is a genius artist who's been at the superstar level for decades. And you are a new phenomenal breakthrough into like YouTube superstar status. You're like creeping up into that level. So you've kind of just caught your break where Ye is like decades down the road of being beyond what anybody can imagine. And Ye is SNEAKO's hero. You're in the presence of a hero who you respect and you love, and he's doing something that is hard to understand. And you're looking at him like, what in the frick? What in the heck is going on? This guy literally loves Hitler. He like loves. You're telling me you meet your hero and it's Ye, and it's like a dream come true, and you're there with Nick and Ye, and you're like, all right, we're taking the fight to him. We're singing Hava Nagila. We're getting onto the Senate committee hearing, video, and that's scary. Oh, deplatform of YouTube, and now my hero, who I'm here with, is after SNEAKO shows up. Then Ye goes full Hitler, and it's like he's not even memeing. You find out Ye's not memeing. He's not just pushing the window. You find out that your hero, this artist who you love, this man that you essentially like iconically idolize, he loves Hitler. Like really does. And you're going, oh my God. I was I was asking Nick about what he thought about the Jews. Like SNEAKO's thinking this. He's like, I asked him what he thought about the Jews. I was interested in Jewish power. I'm understanding this whole thing of like how we can take action in our hands to push back. I get invited into this. I'm now on the main stage with unbelievable allies, but now they're going full pro Hitler. Right at the same time that SNEAKO just got all the money. Now he's got something to lose. Like, imagine being in this guy's shoes. I'm thinking about this for SNEAKO. Imagine what SNEAKO must feel like. Like, I can't even, there's no way I can get it right, but I can, like, take a stab at it and, like, try to understand how that must feel. And then I remember when I was 24. I think that's how old SNEAKO is. And when I was 24, I had made a big change in my life. And even that, and I wasn't on his level, but I made a real big change in my life at 24. And I had just finished working 5 years on an ambulance. I started right after high school at like 19. And I worked from 19 to 24 on an ambulance. I went through fire academy. I did volunteering. I worked on an ambulance. I worked in Compton. I was in Compton. I was on Rosecrans and Wilmington. Like Martin Luther King Hospital was my main stop. And there were bullet holes in the dumpster out in front of our station. And I saw everything from drive-bys to stabbings to overdoses, like nonstop, all the time. Crack whores giving birth to their like 15th child. The crazy I was in and out of thousands of homes in that area, from Compton all the way to Watts and Linwood and Long Beach and Downey and Southgate, Huntington Park, and like all that South LA area. I was all up in like the worst situations. Every time there was an emergency in that area, which was like that's Snoop Dogg's hood, Long Beach and Compton, place where you heard all the songs about in the early 2000s. That's where I was, and I was on an ambulance. And when they called 911, I showed up, and I was a young man, and that kind of was my first. Actually, it was like my second red pill. My first one I was talking to Brittany about last night when I was on Politically Provoked. When I was 10, my dad bought an RV for me and my family, and he put his business on lockdown when the dot-com bubble burst. Everything slowed down, so he put it on hiatus, and we went traveling for 2 years. I lived in an RV, and I've been to most of the states in the United States, and I've seen everything there is to see out there. And for 2 years, we lived on the road, and it was incredible. I was homeschooled, and when we came back, I tested ahead of everybody else. They wanted to skip me ahead in a grade. It says something about the public school system. But I went to national parks and historical monuments and museums and the city hall and town centers and volcanoes and rainforests and fishing villages and you name it. Endless stretches of farmland, the swamps of Mississippi and Florida. I've been all over the United States for 2 whole years. And that really red pilled me at 10 years old because I saw how big the world is and how much of it is out there and how many people are out there. Like as a little kid, imagine seeing all that. And it kind of changed me. I never really felt home after that. I've always been kind of a weirdo after that. Because when I was in one place for too long, I always feel restless. I want to get out there. When I was a teenager, I went to Russia on a missionary trip with my church. I was in Moscow. I got to see the Bolshoi Theater and Red Square and St. Basil's Cathedral. I got to go on a tour of the Kremlin. That was wild. That was kind of a shocking experience. I was there for 5 weeks. But then after high school, I worked on the ambulance in Compton. That was another big milestone for me. That changed my perspective. I got to see humanity up close. I saw people die. I did CPR on people. They were gone. I felt little old lady's bones cracking under my hands as I'm trying to revive her, but it's just part of the protocol. You have to do it. I saw a mother and father holding each other and crying after a woman gives stillbirth to a baby, 3 months premature in their home, and 100 or 1,000 other things. And that caused me to start growing up real fast. Like I came out of my little youthful high school bubble. I did that. And at the end of that, I was about 24. And I quit. The last couple of years, I was in like a burnout phase. I just kind of like stuck in there for a while. I realized it wasn't for me. It wasn't my career. I just, it wasn't for me. I met a lot of people who were like really keen on that job. They were great at it. They were perfect. And I wasn't like them. They were very militaristic and uh, oriented toward a rigid schedule and routine and that kind of thing. Every day, roll the fire hose out and roll it up, polish the fire truck, go to the same hospitals, fill out the same paperwork over and over and over and over and over. It made me insane. And they like to sit around the station and like watch sports and do like sports jokes. And it was kind of boomer environment. And I couldn't, wasn't for me, let's just say. So I was good at the job. I was good at the logistics of the work when there was an emergency, as far as doing the triage and doing the assessment and the life support and working with the people. I was real good at that. But the grind in between that, I was like, I don't want to do this like my whole life. I don't want to make this my life. I want to do something quite a bit different. And I was a young kid in high school when I kind of picked out that path for myself, and I learned about myself on the job. And after like 3 years, I was kind of burned out, and I stuck it out for 2 more years to make sure I wasn't just being a pussy. And I realized, and to make sure like I wasn't going to like get over the hump and then decide I still like it. And I just straight up didn't like it for 2 more years. So I left the job and I started over new. But when I started over, I was married. And I married a woman who's now my ex-wife, unfortunately. But she got roped in to me. Part of the package was that I had this career picked out for myself. I was going to be a firefighter. So she was going to be a firefighter's wife. She was going to have a particular type of schedule and a husband who wears a uniform, and she was going to have respect and a retirement plan and all this picked out for her. And there was a level of security that came with that and respect that she had for me because of that. And when I started over from scratch, doing something completely different, that really shook her world a lot, put her through a lot. And it actually really wasn't quite fair to her, looking back. But also it put an enormous amount of pressure on me to scramble, to do something new. And because now I had a lot to lose. I had money in the bank that was going to dwindle away quickly. I had a wife and respect from her and respect from others that was now like they were looking at me like I was crazy for making a rapid move. And I started from scratch. I started from literally, I had no plan. I talked about it for a while. I knew what I needed to do. I even at the final stage, I put it off for a while. And then one day I said, okay, this is the day. And I resigned. And I came and told my wife, I quit the job today. It's over. And she cried. So it was rough. So what am I saying? All right. The point is, at 24, I remember having an enormous amount of pressure. And then other things happened after that. I pushed a broom in an off-road shop because I wanted to learn how to fabricate. I wanted to learn because in my off time, my days off, my hobby, the thing that I really loved, the thing I was passionate about that I wanted to explore more was automotive fabrication, particularly off-road racing and competition. I had a Jeep and a Toyota 4x4 and a garage full of tools. And when I had days off, there were plenty when I was doing the EMS work, I spent the whole time in my garage tinkering and learning. And I was saving up always for a new tool, and I was buying off-road magazines. And when I was on the internet, I was in different forums, like looking at how people built their different suspension geometries, and I loved it. And that I wonder if I could do well at this. It's what I think about all the time anyway. So I started from nothing, pushing a broom in the off-road shop. Then they allowed me to start like cutting out parts on the bandsaw and running the grinder to get things ready, marking out and drilling holes, helping to prep different types of jigs. And then I started learning how to weld and started practicing. And I'm learning from guys who are like a master level, and they're critiquing me, and they wouldn't let me weld on any projects yet because these were $100,000 vehicles. and it had to look perfect. Like, it had to look like a stack of dimes, like perfect. And it took me a long time to really get my skill up to even close to their level, but it took a lot of practice. And then I started taking on little side projects of my own to make a little bit extra money. I gained a bunch of skill there, but it wasn't really paying the bills, and it was rough because then I had to leave that job because I got offered a sales job in the off-road industry, which once my wife knew that that was a potential for me, she really pressed on it because it was more money because there was a commission involved, and I was really good at it. And now, so I took that job. I left the shop. The shop was slowing down a little bit. It was like a move that I had to make. I won't tell too much of the rest of the story, but the point is, there were changes that I made right at that point of my life. And I'm just saying, I can remember being a young guy who was just coming into like actual adulthood in my mid 20s and feeling very uncertain about some things that were happening. And I was making choices that I knew were going to change. They were going to affect the rest of my life. They were going to affect the rest of my trajectory. They were going to affect my relationships. They were going to affect my opportunities. They were going to put me through a time of feeling like a squeeze rather than sticking with what would have been a safer route that was kind of already like I had already earned all the certifications. I already had years under my belt. I had seniority. I had gone through several pay raises. I had establishment in the union. I could have stayed on the job I was at and then moved up from there into a fire department and been a firefighter paramedic. And then I would have just been cruising. In California, firefighters are highly respected because you hear about California wildfires. The fire department is a very lucrative, stable type of job that you can have. And it's something that just takes a certain amount of effort to get traction into it. But then once you get in, um, you're in. You're in a brotherhood, in an organization where you can have leeway of movement from different departments, and you can become an inspector and a chief and an engineer and all the things you want. But as a paramedic, which is the way that I was going, it's almost like you get double pay, or you're like a highly. I was in. I was on the right path, and I'm the right guy for it. I'm strong. I was athletic. I was young, and I started off young, and it was so I could have done that, but I knew that something about like I had something in me that wanted something else, and it was something like really in me, and I knew there was going to always be a dissatisfaction with me as long as I stayed there, and I could feel it every day, and I had to respond to it. So, and I didn't have kids yet, so I still had a little bit of room, and at the last minute, I jumped the ship. So, back to SNEAKO, the point is, what I would say to him is that I guess I said all of that to say that I can remember how that felt for me. I can remember the feeling, and it was an intense feeling. It felt very, very. It was a strong feeling of the pressure. Like sometimes sleeping was difficult for a while, and sometimes it was like a nagging monkey on my back type of thing. Like, did you make the right choice? You fool! You burned a bridge that you shouldn't have burned. Now look what you've done. Like there's this nagging doubt that I had, and I remember it got me down sometimes, and I started looking for ways to cope with it, and it was strong. And so the reason why I would love to talk to SNEAKO, and I hope he has guys to talk to him. I would, if I could, I would want to just be like in that time. I wish I had somebody like me that could have somebody the way that I feel towards SNEAKO. I wish there was somebody who felt this way toward me that could have just like been in my corner, just somebody to just encourage me and just tell me that I know that feeling and I understand. I can imagine how it might feel. And so, if you need to talk to somebody who can understand it, like I'm here for you. And like I got my own opinions and all sorts of different types of encouragement that I would give SNEAKO as far as advice or whatever. But A lot of times it falls on deaf ears when it's like, all right, well, you have opinions about me, but you're not in my shoes. And it's like, yeah, I'm not in your shoes, and I've never been in exactly those shoes, but I know the feeling of being a young man with a lot riding on certain choices and then making a risky choice. And I remember how that felt, and it was a very strong feeling like in my gut, and it can get you down. And so I would like if anybody could help bring the guy up, because SNEAKO's in such a powerful place. Like to me, if he cared about what my opinion would be, it's like, dude, uh, burn all your money and like literally just be around to take a bullet for Nick or Yay if you can. And that's literally, there's no higher calling than that on the planet right now for anybody, as far as I'm concerned. For real. Like, just be there, and if you're lucky, you'll get to take a bullet that was intended for one of them and save their life.
Magagrew sent $3. I had that recently. Left a good retail manager position for a construction job that initially set me back. But I just knew I had to leave, but I think about if it was the right move quite a lot.
Yep. Yeah. It can weigh on you. So I'm not saying like I'm not even joking. I like that's how to me that's how I see it. And so that might seem over the top to somebody, but for real, there's nobody doing anything more important that I'm aware of on the planet than Ye and Nick, they are mainstreaming the JQ. Like it's happening right in front of our eyes. The thing that I have for years been wondering, how in the world could this possibly happen? It's like there has to be a mass awakening, like a great awakening of the masses. And even just an awareness that the question exists, even if they don't comprehend it, if the conversation just got introduced somehow, just shotgun blasted, a shot heard around the world, everybody going like, what, and then that thing can start germinating that seed in enough minds, then we might stand a chance. And then God has delivered us like a Moses. So then what you do in that scenario, if you ask me, is you just pray to God every day that he gives you strength and wisdom and courage to be part of it as best as you can. And if that means you're a martyr, then you're a martyr. And if it means that you suffer and struggle, then you just like thank God for letting you be honored with the struggle and the suffering that comes along with that position. And you say, "Sir, yes, sir," and you think nothing of yourself and the future. And you put your whole life in God's hands because you're being blessed with having an opportunity to be part of something that is a million times bigger than yourself. And then you just give your life to it. And thank God that you don't have a wife depending on you. And thank God that you don't have children depending on you. And the only thing you have to worry about right now is the money that you're going to lose. Just count it as gone already. Because I know you don't want jewelry, and I know you don't want a fast car. I know you want purpose in your life. Well, you've got it. And all these other people that are telling you that anything else, they don't get it. It's my opinion. To me, they don't understand. These other people that think it's about getting money and getting free and getting a bunch of passports and being able to like skirt the system and use the matrix for your own advantage, and they don't get it. So, so yeah, that's what I would say. I would say every penny that you currently have would be worth paying to be in the position that you're in. So then that's the way to reframe the fear of loss. Like, okay, I've got 999,000 problems and a dollar ain't one. Because it's not about the money, because the money ain't going to buy you into heaven, and the money isn't, you can't pay $1 million to rid the world of parasitic um, conspiring demons, but you can, if you're worthy, you can be of some help to Nick and to Ye. And so I would just be praying that you could be worthy of that. And then whatever happens, and honestly, like, what's the worst that could happen? You get demonized and canceled off everything, and your name is on a list of like the most hated people in the world. Epic, dude. Cool. You're a thought terrorist. Based. Be that. Be that. Like, go all in on that. And this whole idea of like any worry about like, yeah, but Hitler was evil or whatever. Like, since when is it evil to kill your enemies? God had his people doing that all throughout the whole Bible. The admonition is to love your enemies. True. But it doesn't mean that you can't protect yourself from them. It's never been the way. And so the idea that Hitler did bad things, so he's evil. Hitler was a vegetarian, and Hitler was a very loving person, and he gave his life along with many, many, many of his brothers to try to save themselves from the actual evil. And it was a dirty business, and it was nasty. That's the way it looks to me. But this whole thing about what about this and that and the gas chambers, like, dude, you believe all that? Like, come on. The point is not that we need to try to do what Hitler did, but the point is that this being afraid to support Ye because he loves Hitler, that would be a mistake. That's my point. There's nothing wrong with looking at what Hitler did and looking at who he was and saying, wow, that was an amazing human being. That was an amazing man. That was an amazing thing that took place back there. It was a tragic outcome, and it was a very messy business. But to just think that he was just a nut or a maniac or just an evil man, it's the wrong take. I don't think that's what it was at all. So I don't think Ye's evil. I don't think so. And I don't think Nick's evil. And I think that, this whole red pill manosphere thing about being a man doesn't mean having muscles and fast cars and lots of bitches. It's not what it means. But even if you love Andrew Tate, like I said something to SNEAKO today, I was like, well, is Andrew Tate evil? I mean, didn't he make his money taking advantage of desperate men by like cam whoring? Wasn't it through selling Vice, basically porn, to a bunch of desperate guys and taking their money? Something to think about. And I'm not calling Andrew Tate evil, but if you're going to judge a man by his actions, by his past, by some of the outcomes of his choices, well, then we should analyze from that angle. But then if you highly regard Andrew Tate and you think of him as a role model or as an actual, like a new type of figure of a man, part of his story is that he's like smashed the faces of like 56 opponents and beat the shit out of them in the ring. Like, since when is beating the shit out of your enemy evil? And if you watch how it went down in Germany, back to the Hitler thing, he didn't get into power and immediately go to war. And he didn't get into power and start a war. He came into power and elevated his economy and restored like the wellness of his people very quickly in the middle of while the rest of the world was going through the Great Depression in the 30s. They were flourishing. And then when there were a bunch of Germans in Poland who were being mistreated, he went in to go rescue them. Still didn't start a war. And he begged the other sides for peace. And he was ignored. And his style of war was brutal but effective. Kristallnacht or Blitzkrieg, both of these were just like rip the Band-Aid off, straight up the middle, go hard and fast, get it over with. So yeah, it's going to be brutal. That's the best way to play. Literally the best way to play. And he won. He won massively, at least at the beginning. But then, an even more brutal enemy that was willing to firebomb cities and drop nuclear bombs and hoax ourselves into the war, Pearl Harbor, with false flag attacks and all sorts of dirty business. That enemy, which was basically ready to end the whole world just to win, that enemy ended up prevailing. Now look at the outcome. Like you, SNEAKO, you've done all those street videos with like random people on the street can't even name two countries outside the U.S. They can't name the countries on the northern and southern border. They can't name the capital of their own state. Like simple things. They can't figure out 3 times 3 times 3. Think if Hitler had won, we'd have just retarded people everywhere. Do you like living in a world covered in retarded people? You think we'd have just like gays and trannies and feminists? You think that would be everywhere? I kind of think there might be a little bit more law and order. There might be a lot more happy families, a lot less broken homes. Might be. But there'd be a scary swastika all over the place. Right? And the libertine, like the leftists that are all about my freedom to butt fuck whoever I want, they'd be scared. But they should be. And the ones who pay for that are the children. You and I, when we were kids, and all of our friends, we paid. My children, and your children, if you have any, they'll pay. Because no matter how purely you intend to raise your own kids, I mean, you might be able to break away off of the grid somehow. Go live in the woods, live a little life on the prairie, be in a bunker somewhere, generate your own energy and your own water, milk your own goats, and make your own clothes out of sheep's wool or whatever. You could do that and try to isolate yourself from the satanic world around you. But you're probably not going to do that. And what's probably going to happen, just like is happening to all of your brothers and sisters, their children are experiencing a constant wave of sin being thrown in their face. They're just being molested by the devil every day. And when it's going up and down the street or in and out of the store, it's advertisements on the show. It's every time they watch something on the screen made by Walt Disney. It's every day they're being molested by the devil. And if you only care about your own kids, and if you are successful in secluding them from all of that, well then, I guess, good for you, I guess. But I don't care about only my kids. My love for my children has opened me up to love for all of God's children. I care about everybody. I love everybody. And I want everybody to have freedom from this constant molestation, constant torment, constant temptation, constant seduction, constant poison. And so, SNEAKO, you are in a place where you get to be, you've been blessed. You're privileged to be on the front lines. So, dude, raise your flag. Put your chest out. Breathe deeply. Thank God and realize how beautiful that is. And then give your whole life to it. There's a million other guys that would die to be in your shoes for a day. Do not be afraid. Don't let fear rob you from any energy that you might be able to give. Don't let pride or worry of the future or anything like that get in the way from you being just like a living sacrifice to something that's so awesome that you're involved in. Some legendary, pivotal, this is a key turning point moment in time that will be remembered for all time. And your name is on it. Or you could chicken out. Or you could have second thoughts. You could play it safe. Hell, you could get a Bugatti. You can have lots of treasures on earth. Maybe. Maybe you can. In fact, I bet there's a Jew out there with a big old bag of cash he'll throw at you just to jump ship, especially if you'd be willing to stab somebody in the back. They'll pay you off. But I wouldn't want to be that guy. Not when I get to heaven. Not when I lay my head down at night to sleep. Not when I look at myself in the mirror. So don't be afraid. Don't let their words get to you. That I would beg you, bro. Please be like free yourself of all of that. Throw yourself all the way into it. Just leap and just head first. Don't look back because it's all good.